of your body of work. And you and Carl have been on the road now for months premiering this film across the country. Please tell us, what hits different now in April of 2026 differently than when this film first premiered at Telluride?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, Democracy Now! Has been, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary, just as KPFK is celebrating its 66th birthday. And I want to congratulate you, Ace, for becoming the interim general manager. And thank all of you for coming out to support KPFK. It is so important, and to see you in person. We were just broadcasting this morning from 5 to 6 your time, doing Democracy Now! That aired at 7 and airs every weekday morning from 7 to 8, repeated 4 to 5. And when we were in New York, we celebrated our 30th anniversary at the Riverside Church with Hooray for the Riff Raff, who sang Palante Ever Forward. After Juan gave an amazing speech, and you see Juan Gonzalez throughout this and his history as one of the founders of the Young Lords in New York, and he led the Daily News strike and was part of the Columbia protest strike, and a leading journalist. And Nermeen Sheikh was there, who you see in this film. Patti Smith sang Peaceable Kingdom, and Michael Stipe was there of REM, and we ended with Bruce Springsteen singing Streets of Minneapolis, and together they all came out on the stage and sang Patti's iconic People of the Power. You're the people. You have the power, and you have powered KPFK for all of these years, and we thank you so much for that. The film came out on the film festival circuit a while ago, months ago, and yes, it was at Telluride and at Santa Barbara, and there it won an audience favorite award. It in Mill Valley, in Santa Fe, and I really and Woodstock, and the Oslo Human Film Festival, and Seattle, where we're headed soon. We're going to the Bay Area tomorrow morning to the Roxy in San Francisco and the Rialto in Berkeley. We're going to be in Sacramento, so many places. But the theatrical release was really last week, a few days ago. So this is a whole new beast. You've got the film festival circuit where Carl Deal and Tia Lesson, this incredible directing duo, who are nominated for an Oscar for Trouble the Water about Hurricane Katrina, did Citizen Coke. Tia did The Janes about the underground abortion network in Chicago in the late 60s. She won 3 Emmys for that. They're an amazing team of directors, Michael Moore's producers, they were years ago. And to be able to work with them, for them to craft this film has been incredible. And you see, almost at the beginning, it starts with Pacifica Radio, with WBAI in New York, with Maurice Bickham walking in. Such an incredible moment. I also want to thank Dennis Moynihan, my colleague at Democracy Now! For more than a quarter of a century. But this has been incredible. Being with all of you, this was a dream I had, to come to Los Angeles and do a big fundraiser for KPFK, because we've got to show the corporate media this is sustainable. And this is the only answer. When we are in the midst of a war, we need a media that's not brought to you by the weapons manufacturers. When we are in the midst of a climate catastrophe, we need a media that's not brought to us by the oil, gas, and coal companies. When we are in the midst of that sucking sound from the bottom to the top, we need a media that's not brought to us by the financial institutions and the corporations owned by the billionaires who are shutting down a lot of the media right now. It is closing down with these corporate media mergers. You have the Washington Post just cut out a third of its workforce, of its reporters, hundreds of reporters laid off, owned by Jeff Bezos, who was the billionaire tech bro who stood with the other billionaires behind President Trump on that second inauguration day last January. We need an independent media that's brought to us by all of you and people like you and not like you all over the country and the world.
Yeah.
You really talk about your thesis, which I think is encapsulated obviously in the title of this film, Steal This Story, Please, which in a world like you described that's captured by media conglomerates, mergers and acquisitions, exclusivity, paywalls, your motto and the motto of your newsroom is really take this story, we want you to take this and run with it.
Wear your sneakers and run with it. Let's get these stories out. I consider an exclusive a failure. That's one of the mottos of Democracy Now!, along with go to where the silence is and the exception to the rulers, because that's what we're supposed to be. But I also think it's so important for Carl to talk about, how they started this project, because Democracy Now! Is a daily grassroots, global, unembedded, independent, international investigative news hour. And that is a very different project than filmmakers making this film.
Yeah, Carl, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the process of making this film and what it was like translating 30 years of investigative journalism into the story we just watched on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll borrow your mic, Amy.
Amy always shares the mic. That could have been the name of the film. Thanks, Ace. Thank you, Amy, for letting Tia and I do this. And I don't think you got tired of us. So thank you. And thank all of you. I mean, look, we've been showing this film all over for the last 6 or 8 months. Sorry, that's me. And we always talk about how appreciative we are of audience, and especially, in what Democracy Now! Does, the audience is number one. The audience is the boss. The audience is the only thing that Amy's there to serve. And as independent filmmakers, we feel the same way too. But I have to say that this particular screening with this particular audience feels a lot more real. Like that, you guys are the real deal here. So thank you for coming. And to answer your question a little bit, it was daunting to tell the story. It was an honor, but it was daunting to be trusted by Amy with interpreting 30 years of her life. This film is created not by Amy Goodman. The story we told was our story of what we saw and what we experienced of Amy. And hopefully if you do it right, it resonates and you hit all the right spots. And Amy hasn't complained yet. So yeah, it was daunting is all I can say. Our process was, we looked at everything. We looked at the outs. They've covered everything that's happened in the world for 30 years. And what we ended up, we made our choices based on what resonated with the present moment the most, I guess. And, the theme of media consolidation, the importance of independent media just is imbued throughout this film.
Were there any, like you mentioned, the theatrical release was just last week, over the premieres through the art film circuit, were there any changes to the cut that you made based on audience reactions or based on what was happening in the world?
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
We try to resist being dictated by one audience's experience as opposed to the other. I will say, and I think Amy would agree, is that every time we see this film, we learn something new about the film because the experience, this is why cinema is so great, is it's different every single time because the room changes and the people change. And, you know, you're vulnerable when you're experiencing something collectively, especially, you know, something serious like this. But we couldn't resist. We live in the digital age. We're independent, so we didn't have to. We didn't have a firm deadline, and because we're in the digital age, we did make some changes, as you see in here. Obviously, the uprising in Minneapolis did not happen in last summer when we first finished the film. So, yes.
Uprising in LA too.
And you had an uprising here too. Absolutely.
This next question's for you, Amy. You and Democracy Now! Have covered every American major movement of the last 30 years. WTO Seattle, Occupy, Ferguson, the Uprising, No Kings, Standing, etc. What are the movements going on right now that you think are underrepresented in the media, or that aren't getting the attention that it deserves?
I would never pretend to say we covered every movement. I don't think that we did, but we try very hard to be there on the ground and cover major movements over these 30 years. We have an incredible archive. And it's so important to my phone talks to me all the time, but you know, I think the most overlooked voices are the voices of people at the target end of US foreign policy. I mean, if you look at the President of the United States, he occupies the most powerful position on earth. But there is a force more powerful. It's all of you in this room, and it's people all over this country and around the world. You know, as reporters, we know no borders. So right now with the Israel-US attack on Iran, to hear Iranian voices are so important. There are many Iranians in this community I know in Los Angeles, and to hear Palestinian voices is so rare. You might say, no, they cover what happened in Gaza, but to hear it described by the people who have survived, and of course those that didn't. I mean, we interviewed Rafat al-Arir, the great poet in Gaza, and then he was killed along with his family in an Israeli airstrike. And so then we talked to people there and hear who knew him, like the great Palestinian poet Mossab Abu Toha, who just won the Pulitzer Prize for his essays in the New Yorker magazine. He was one of the people who joined us for the 30th anniversary of Democracy Now! And we played Rafat's a clip of Rafat's interview, and we played, you know, Brian Cox, the star of Succession, who then read Rafat's poem, If I Must Die. And then Mossab came up on the stage before 2,000 people and read his own poem, Under the Rubble. I want to remember the Palestinian journalists, how many of them have died. Most recent, an Al Jazeera journalist was killed by Israel, and they fully admitted they targeted him, and struck his car, and he was killed. Many say what Israel has done in Lebanon, that because of their control of the media and what they did in Gaza, it was a precursor to Lebanon. And we talked to, just today, talked to a Lebanese reporter in Beirut. We spoke to Ali Vayez, an Iranian analyst, and then we spoke to Alia Rahman. I was pitching on KPFK, so you might not have heard that interview with her this morning. I was urging you all to come out and support KPFK, and thank you for doing that today. But Alia is an amazing woman, right? She was on her way to a doctor's appointment, one of scores of doctor's appointments. She is autistic, she is disabled, she uses a cane, and ICE agents smashed the window. They reached their hand in with a knife and cut off her seatbelt, across her shoulder. She thought she was going to die. I mean, this is after Nagud was killed, after Alex Bretton. She thought it was over. Why are they reaching a knife across her neck? And then they drag her out, ripping her tendons. She was absolutely horrified. She was screaming, I'm disabled, I'm disabled. And they responded, too late. And she said on Democracy Now! Today, because she's just filed a complaint with the Department of Homeland Security, which is the precursor to a lawsuit. She said when it was videotaped, and that videotape went viral. Her lawyers looked at the videotape. They said too effing late, but they said it all. And then, and we had her on Democracy Now! Then Ilhan Omar, the Somali refugee congresswoman from Minneapolis, who President Trump calls garbage, along with the entire Somali community of Minneapolis, invited her to the State of the Union address. And Ilya, though she was so wounded by this attack, she went. She felt it was important. She was in the gallery. She was standing behind a police chief and a mayor of two different towns. And if you watch the longest State of the Union in U.S. history, President Trump's State of the Union, all the Republicans were standing up, cheering, sitting down, standing up. And if it was the other way, it would have been the Democrats. And she stood up and she sat down, but she was bearing silent witness. And security dragged her out of the room, and they jailed her again. We had booked her for the next morning because here is this woman who was brutalized in Minneapolis, and she's going to the State of the Union, so we wanted to see what that experience was like. And she got out at 4 a.m, and she thought, I have this commitment to Democracy Now! So she walked right into the studio, and she said, first on Democracy Now! I'm wearing the same thing I wore to the State of the Union because I just got out of jail again. But to hear her voice and her description of what happened to her in the gallery with security taking her out, the New York Times, Washington Post, they all quoted her from our show. That's what we call steal this story. It is not enough to just echo through the communities around the world that listen to Democracy Now!, but echo everywhere. That's what we consider a success.
Thank you, Amy.
You want to?
We have one time for one
okay.
more? Okay. These are, thank you guys to those of you who have submitted questions for Amy. This last one, Democracy Now! Was born on Pacifica in 1996 during a presidential election. 30 years and 1,500 stations